Good afternoon, and on behalf of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, I'm Terry Stillman, the Associate Director, and I'd like to welcome you to our spring semester of talks. I'm going to first introduce Kevin, who is our moderator, and he will introduce the speakers. Please stay with us through the end of the entire webinar, and we'll have a chance for you to take a survey and sign up for our newsletters also. So thank you so much for being here. Kevin.
Okay, thank you everyone joining in person as well as our friends online. Today marks the 3 years since the military coup in Myanmar. As you all know, there has been untold suffering and monumental losses among so many throughout the country because of the coup, and we want to honor that. But in what has also been called Myanmar's Spring Revolution, there has also been so much to celebrate and learn from in the continuing fight for federal democracy, despite all of these challenges. The panelists, who I'll introduce in a second, have come together today to discuss the current revolutionary movement and moment in Myanmar and its recent successes, the prospective trajectory of the armed conflict in Myanmar, and the potential supportive role that others can be playing. Just a bit on format. After I introduce the panelists, then we will discuss questions that we have prepared beforehand for up to an hour, after which we will then turn to the audience members who are both here in person as well as online to ask of our panelists as follow-up questions. So please be thinking of questions for the panelists as we go through our discussion. Okay, now let me introduce our esteemed panelists. I will first start with Dr. Mie Mie Win Bryd, who is professor at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies here in Honolulu, Hawaii. While on active duty from 2003 to 2007, she had served in many capacities: Deputy Economic Advisor, Civil Military Operation Plans Officer, and Interagency Operations Officer, all at the U.S. Pacific Command. She has also served as a linguist and cultural advisor to the U.S. delegations for ASEAN as well as Myanmar. Dr. Bryd is currently serving on several boards related to business and education, and is president of the managing committee of the Sue Foundation. Her publications have focused on gender, socioeconomics, and leveraging the private sector in combating terrorism. So thank you for joining us today and coming to campus. I know you have a busy schedule, so we're really appreciative of you joining us.
Just really quickly, I'm no longer serving on the Sue Foundation. I used to.
Noted. Noted. Next, I will go to Lian Thang, who many of us, including myself, know as the much easier name BP. He is also the organizer of the panel, so I'm very appreciative of bringing us together. He is a Ph.D. student here at the Department of Political Science here on campus. His research interests include Myanmar's nation-building process, ethnic and indigenous politics, human rights, and U.S.-China competition. He was previously a political analyst for the U.S. Department of State and an activist in Myanmar, as well as a previous visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge. His previous publications have appeared in such places as the Diplomat and for the Stimson Center, Oxford University's Tea Circle, and the Irrawaddy, and is a 2022 recipient of the John O'Kell Prize for his writing contributions. And then we have Hlaing, who is currently a student here at UH. He is an independent writer, analyst, and researcher from Rakhine State in Myanmar, and is an author of dozens of articles on human rights, political transitions, and issues related to civil war and the military coup. He was also a guest contributing writer for the Pulitzer Center project on intensive armed conflict in Rakhine State from 2018 to 2020 before coming here to the US. He is also one of the award winners at the 2021 Human Rights Press Awards and yet another award from the Society of Professional Journalists, among other journalistic accolades. I wanted to take the time to do all that because I am very, very proud, and it's really special for all of us to be on this island together with such expertise, which you can't say for many campuses. So I wanted to take the time to go through people's resumes. So with all that being said, or maybe I'll just say 2 sentences about myself. Political ecologist, political geographer, working on land and natural resources in armed conflict in Myanmar. I'm currently working on my next book project on trying to look at armed rebellion and counterinsurgency through the lens of environmental change. I'm a fellow at the East-West Center and an adjunct associate professor on campus at the Department of Geography and Environment. Okay, now we can finally move on to why we're all here, is to kind of piece together a discussion amongst the panelists with several questions that we have come prepared with. And so I'd like to start the kind of open-ended question to get things rolling. So we're 3 years into Myanmar's Spring Revolution. And we're all interested to hear from you on what you see as its essential components that are deserving of more attention. And I will pass it on to Dr. Mie Mie Win Bryd.
Okay, yeah. So I thought about that and that question. First, thank you for having me. And then also I want to take a little bit of disclaimer saying that, whatever I say today is my own opinion and assessment. I'm not representing Department of Defense or US government. So I just wanted to put the disclaimer out there. But I thought about that, and there are, I think, 3 things that I think that, for me, this revolution is interesting and noteworthy. The first one is unprecedented level of cooperation amongst all these different ethnic groups, and different, not only ethnic, but also different type of groups, the women's group, all kinds of things. So that's number 1. And then number 2 is the level of people support. This is like, our data is showing like 92% of the country, have some type of a resistant effort actively against the military. So then number 2. And number 3 is the involvement of women. Our data is showing 65% of the resistant forces made up of women. So I think those are the 3 noteworthy. And as a result, we're seeing a lot of success, given that the resistance forces have received very little material assistance from outside other than the diaspora. Right? So I think those are the 3 noteworthy elements of this fight.
Oh, yeah, I think that's really good answer. In my perspective, I think if we look at the current resistance movement in Myanmar, a lot of international organizations and analysts are only seeing the armed struggle, but like we said, there is lots of key component, and one of the key component that people do not see is non-violence method. So basically, after the coup, a lot of people are coming to the street, demanding for the reverse of the coup, and people are coming, very peaceful protests. And because of the military brutal crackdown, is trending to another dimension. This is armed struggles. And if we look at the non-violence, in Myanmar, one of the key components, I think, is the civil disobedience movement. Civil disobedience movement is the movement that was initiated by medical doctors in Myanmar. And according to the NUG, in a couple of the months, the civil servant who participated in the movement was 360,000, which is almost kind of like double than the the total of the Myanmar civil servants, which is a really high number. And there is also kind of like defection, military kind of like like defections, and desertion happens. And according to the latest kind of like report, there are kind of like 13,000 military defections. I think like around 10,000 is military, and I think like 3,000 is about the policemen. I think that's kind of like a key. And a lot of activists, including the Min Kunai, who was kind of like very prominent, kind of like during the the start of the revolution, said CDM was kind of like the main, but it's later turned into kind of like more armed struggles. So I think the reason that why it's turned into the armed struggle, I think, could be also kind of like the frustrations of the international support as well. I think the case example of the 1988 uprisings, I think this is also another factor. I think, and also the existence of the established ethnic armed organization across the country. I think those are the key.
Hlaing, do you want to add some talking points to that?
Oh yeah, thank you very much for having me today. I'm really pleasure. I'm also very proud of you today. Almost my seniors and my yeah, and So I think almost the Dr. Mie Mie and the book we already talked about. So a really good point. But I can summarize a little bit, just a couple of things. Actually, I see that the determination. So when I say determination, the people, like especially young people and even diaspora, for the globalists, they have really strong determination to support and to fight against the junta, especially to overthrow the junta and to establish a federal democratic union in Burma. This can be said very rare in the historically, and also the Auntie Mie also mentioned that this is like we can say the every layer of the people unite again, and also the coming together and fighting. This is like historically a very interesting point for Myanmar. And also we can also see another point that the people, the adoption and resilience. So after 3 years, I mean, fighting for a week, living without internet, if you live without internet for a week, it can be possible. So we are just globalization. We are studying from the internet. We attend, even today, most of the people are attending online. So without internet, but the people, their determination, and also can see that adoption or resilience. I mean, this is like a huge support for also the people with diaspora, also almost the people right, and so the adoption and resilience also very worthy noted here.
Yeah, I say 3 C's: commitment, courage, and creativity. That's what people has shown. Really, the commitment, courage, and creativity, because they're utilizing all kinds of material that you wouldn't think of using. And like he said, they have overcome a lot of the communication challenges in a very, very creative way.
I like this thread of creativity. Mimi, do you want to say, or does anyone want to give more examples of certain types of creativity that have been used to the success of the revolution?
Well, there's another creative way to keep keep the commitment, right? So we talked about the people's commitment and resolve and determination. It comes from their ability to also the movement, leaders to keep people organized and people communicated. And there are many really creative way that they have come up with to do that. And I don't want to reveal everything because I'm sure there are other people listening and I don't want to put people in danger, but they have overcome a lot of them. And there's, word of mouth, communication technology that they're utilizing. And in many ways, do you guys have a specific, but not to be too specific, but, something.
Yeah, I didn't mean like giving away the secrets, but I just mean in general, like especially in terms of technology. I still very fresh in my mind of like the first time I was able to use a cell phone in Myanmar. It really wasn't that long time ago. Things have evolved so quickly just in terms of the type of technologies that are being used for supporting civil society. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to share that is okay to share.
I think we can share that are kind of like public informations. I think the creativity, because after the coup, I was in Myanmar for like years, and I see kind of like lots of kind of like young people, kind of like adaptability and creativity that kind of like gain the resistance movement and momentum. I think like one of the thing is social punishment. So this is the thing that they initiate. For instance, the loss of celebrity kind of like who are not participate, it's like they kind of like non-violently kind of like they kind of like do not like or share their kind of like social media posts. So lots of kind of like active kind of like actor becoming more kind of like active in the resistance movement. And I think if we look at the kind of like battlefield as well, we see lots of PDF, like People Defense Force are kind of like attracting military defections, not just kind of like campaign, but also kind of like offering some of the incentive. I think that we have seen like if they are kind of like coming defection with their military kind of like weapon or some kind of like equipment, there is some reward. So I think those are kind of like really creative way. I think
Oh yeah, So I just one thing, only one thing I know that especially after 3 months after the NU were established and then in April, so and the people start changing the mind. Non-violence way is no work for Myanmar wanted to overthrow, and so when I see that, I was at the time was Yangon, the people start thinking and they start, initiate the fundraising through the internet. I mean, this is a huge, they just using Facebook and also like a YouTube channel and so many YouTube channel. This is like a YouTube channel. These are public like a property or something like they create for only funding for revolution. They create a lot of YouTube channel and they create funding. Also, they also rises maybe selling like a product or something like selling product for only for this benefit for the revolution, such as DVD, especially through internet. And also we can also see that the Mobile Legends like PDF people different for some Mobile Legends. If you play the games, so the money we gain for revolution, such as a DVD is very creative and very interesting.
Yeah, like their fundraising is another thing that they did really creatively, like clicks based on your clicks, right? Bitcoins and doing all kinds of they're selling their militaries, leaders, they're auctioning out their houses, stuff like that, and bonds, and really amazing creativity that they were able to come up with. So it's.
And I think it really speaks to the other issues that you raised of just really admirable cooperation, solidarity, commitment, courage,
Right.
And then using these kind of technological tools in order to either fundraise or use for other purposes.
One of the reasons the military, the leadership didn't quite understand or grasp the changing environment. What they're doing is they're taking the 1988, and then copy and paste into this current environment. But 10 years of, the democratic transition has transformed the operating environment. They're talking from the military speak, right? Operating environment, the better ICT, and the people are a lot more awake and they're open. And then you have millions of diaspora that is has to flee, but now they're doing very well and they're well educated. So that's another piece is the diaspora. I think Hlaing said diaspora is totally mobilized. And some of these creativity and the skill that they need to resist come from a lot from diaspora. But diaspora is able to talk to the people inside because of the ICT has advanced. You know what I mean? So all the operating environment has changed, but the military strategy is stay the same. They're utilizing 1950 strategy, and it is almost a textbook case of what not to do in counterinsurgency operation. I mean, I'm going to write one day a book about how not to do in Myanmar military as the perfect way to, not do it, because they utilize fear. That's all they have in their strategy. The primary driver is fear. But, Machiavelli warned people that if Prince uses too much fear, it can flip to anger. And that's what happened. That's what happened. And we have seen it in any other operating environment too, not just Myanmar. When you push the people with violence and it flipped from fear, beyond fear into anger. And that's what you're seeing. 92% of the, people right now are against they're doing some type of a resistant activity against. And diaspora also is all mobilized. And I engage with a lot of diaspora. You have like old lady that live in Buffalo, New York, right? She's 82 years old and she has arthritis and she will never go back to Myanmar. So this Myanmar freedom will never affect her. I mean, she will never get the benefit of it, but she cooks every weekend with her arthritis hand and she sells the food for the PDFs. And that's the same way again in Australia, Japan, all the diaspora across the, it's a multi-generational because that lady represents my parents' generation and they didn't finish off the military. And so my generation used to say, we had to fight in 1988 because you didn't finish it. And now Gen Z is telling us, my generation, that you didn't do it right. So my Gen Zs are my children generation, right? So this time for once, I think that's the commitment. The level of commitment is because it's multi-generational and the Myanmar people believe, Myanmar people to include all the ethnic, once and for all, they got to remove the military because you will go into cycle. And the interesting thing is Myanmar military is on the verge of collapse right now. It's teetering on the edge.
So to that, thank you, Mie Mie. And going more on that, I'm just kind of segueing into the second question, which we're already in, but are there any other main successes that you have seen over the 3 years or more in the last few months that you want to raise, or perhaps more provocatively, maybe some less than strengths, also known as some weaknesses, that you think could be overcome using certain sort of methods? Not to shame the movement, but like what else you would like to see in order for them to be more successful. I think that would also be nice to hear.
It's not about shaming and blaming, but we have to be clear-eyed about assessing the situation and understand the movement's weaknesses so that we can fix it, right? I understand so I think that's what we have to keep in mind. So we shouldn't be afraid of discussing the weaknesses, but we're not blaming and shaming people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does BP, would you want to start us out?
Yeah. So I think I would like to, mention 2 points that kind of that I see kind of really, improving. One, I think after the, military coup, I think there is kind of more social harmony between the ethnic kind of minority and the Burma, peoples. A lot of armed struggle in the past are kind of labeled as a kind of ethnic minority movement, and sometimes they blame that Burma people are not involved. Sometimes there's a kind of misunderstanding. People in the kind of urban area doesn't really understand the suffering of the kind of armed struggle movement. But after kind of military coup, people in Yangon, Mandalay, they see within their own eyes, military kind of like, torturing, kind of like, beating them, the civilians. So I think that's kind of like changed a lot. And a lot of the kind of like celebrity, who against the military, who are kind of like, running away, and they are kind of like seeking protection in the ethnic groups, protection areas. And a lot of people defense force, which is the arm wing of the national unity government, are kind of like trained by ethnic armed organizations. So I think that is kind of like a big improvement after the military coup in Myanmar. Second is the what I see is the operation of 1027. I think many people might not very familiar here.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
For those not familiar.
yeah. So basically, 10 is kind of like the month, so basically, kind of like, October 27 operation in 2023 was kind of like launched by, a brotherhood, kind of like three brotherhood ethnic alliance together with national unity government. And this is really successful. According to the US IP report, 7,000 square kilometer has been, liberated, fall under the, resistant territory. And I think like over 300, outposts has been taken by the, resistant groups. And
Sorry, Bibi, I must add more to that. Like the main cross-border trading points with China that generates so many millions of dollars every day
yes,
is no longer under government control.
yes.
Not government, military, who just.
Yes, that's and also in the Indo-Burma borders, like the main kind of like gate are fall under the resistant group. So this is kind of like really kind of like gain the momentum of the resistant movement in Myanmar. And before that, I think a lot of people kind of like skeptical about the resistant movement, but I think these two are something that we can take really positive from the 3 years revolution.
Justin Hlaing.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, and also want to add one point, the almost like right now, the country border areas, from the Bangladesh to the India to the China, all the border area controlled by resistance for right now. You can see, obviously. It was a very successful. We also mentioned about the Operation 127. So I want something like different point, maybe weakness. So a state, I think the state there are so many weakness. Point to bring all ethnic group together. Probably there are some political purposes. Some are political purposes. Some are like some are so maybe. Some are like most of them are political purposes. Some are they are stay. They are joining under like anonymous or something. Working. Yes, can see that, but. I think yesterday one statement came out with 3 ethnic group and national unity government. It's really positive. So we can see behind this statement how many ethnic peoples are involved or how many we don't know yet. But these statements can see that very positive, and I think it also has to bring more discussion, also more like maybe. Like in terms of constitution or something more political commitment for ethnic people stay in India.
Yeah, I want to build on that because we need a general political agreement because they can't go detail yet, but general political agreement, and it has to go beyond just the 4 groups. That's great. That's a great progress. I think that we need to bring in all the ethnic groups together and have some type of a general political agreement is what they need. I think that's a place to go to. So we're talking about a little bit about weakness. Another thing is tighter cooperation and tighter command and control of their operations. And the command and control doesn't mean that you have chain of command, one chain of command. Command and control is needed in military operation because you need that they call it a unity of effort, right? But you can get unity of effort in a traditional way is a chain of command, but also you can get it through joint command structure. So if they can develop the joint command structure in much tighter control, then they can have more effectiveness. And then the last piece is, I think, strategic communication. They need to have strategic communication plan and strategy to tell the story so that the international can understand it. But as well as strategic communication is needed to, continue to keep the people together, right? And then strategic communication is also needed to talk with each other, right? So having that strategic communication more deliberate, more planned, more, purposeful is going to, I think, get them, in a long way. So 2024 should be a strategic communication year. And also what all this stuff that I'm saying is, command and control is military related, but in reality, what we found in all the successful revolution is not about firepower, it's about people power. What we found was the three things that I coined it as DIP, D-I-P, defection, international pressure, and people support. And that's what appear in all the successful revolution of history, that three elements keep on appearing. And it's not about firepower. And so you can looking at that framework, you can look back at what Myanmar people has done, right? It is, because it's not about firepower. Myanmar military has all the firepower. I mean, they far outweigh, 100 times more than the resistance forces, but the resistance forces are, gaining ground and they're losing all the border area already, and then many parts of the heartland too, like in Zagai and Magway, a lot of the areas are under the control of the resistance. Like yesterday, I got a report from Karani State. This is a French reporter, and he was reporting from there, and he was saying that a lot of the road to from Karani State to Naypyidaw is all controlled by resistance forces.
Please.
One thing to add from my previous point of a point of 1027 Operation Success is the position of the Myanmar become more unstable. I think this is very significant. I think especially for political observer to Myanmar, especially very over the past few months, even within the pro-military groups, they are demanding Min Aung Hlaing to step down from his positions and replaced by one of the senior his second second commander. And I think this is really significant because the pro-military are calling in Inouye. This is where a lot of military training are happening. So these people are not punished. These protester pro-military are not sued. So it means there is a defection within the military. So I think this is one of the key success of 1027 operations.
And well, you can tie it into this next question because it is on this issue of defections, of which we've seen a lot more in recent months. And my question for all of you is, and of course these are all related to the previous questions, is what in your opinion would be the tipping point? As BP mentioned, Min Aung Hlaing is receiving increasing pressures internally. And so what is needed with the resistance movements or even internally to finish this off?
Well, I've declared it as the movement has reached the tipping point in their favor. And one of the key things for me indicated was unit level defections. Either unit level defections or the high level defection. The inner circle within Myanmar is defecting. And we have seen that. And why people ask, why is there defection right now? The military, again, is back to fear. They use fear against their own people. And they have so corrupt, and there's so much difference between the officer and the enlisted, that enlisted are in the front line. You may have seen the picture of a soldier that are waiting to be picked up in India because soldier, and they had a fight in the border town between Burma and Myanmar and the India, and they ended up about 300 ended up they fled into India side because they lost that town to the resistant forces. So military was going to go pick them up. You see the soldier, they're lining up to be picked up. They're in slippers and they have bamboo baskets for backpack, right? And many times all the resistant forces are saying that the soldier in the front lines are looking for food. They don't have food, right? They're underfed, so as a result, the soldiers don't have the will to fight. And the second piece is the soldiers see that they're not supported by the people. And also many of them join the military to protect the people, right? And they are abusing and killing the people, and they see that. So that's why it's not surprising the military is collapsing, because that type of force is not an effective fighting force. Right, and you had their soldier that killing their officers, right? And so, and not only the defection, but we also have surrenders in the front line at the unit level.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had the latest biggest defection was 6,500 troops in the border guard area in the Karen state, right? But some of them are 100, 200, troops. But also they're real quick on that, all their battalions are no longer the battalion. A battalion is an 800-person, organization. When I was interviewing some of the defectors that are battalion commander, they're down to 150 last year, and now it's down to half of it because of the killed in action and defection and desertion. The defection, that 13,000 is underreported. There are many desertion that just walked away and we couldn't, they didn't register with anybody. So why? It's because of that corruption and the fear, had gone over to the younger son.
Jocelyn, would you like to add to this?
Oh yeah, I just want to add one point recently regarding the weakness. Actually, I just point out that. So I'm saying that until today, like after 3 years, the military coup, especially the neighbor country like Thailand, India, Bangladesh, China, all these 4 countries are still closely working with the junta regime. It's not very forward-looking. And even today, the national unity government, so the government's representative have been open representative office in Europe, Washington DC, and Australia and Japan. But we can see that the national unity government definitely, we can say they overrun the international state. SEC doesn't represent any international state until today, but still the neighbor country, especially Thailand, India, Bangladesh, the China, all these countries are still really close to working with it. Can see that really close to SEC. It's main the front resistance for they have to engage, they have to increase their engagement with these countries for these 2024 as a first priority for NC.
Yeah, they still have these countries. I think they are under the influence of many years of propaganda the military has generated. They're just too big to fail. And they're the one that keeping the country together. But in fact, they're the source of division because they have a strategy of divide and conquer. That's how they keep all the ethnic group, separate and fighting. And so I think that all these neighboring countries are really not understanding. They still, many of them are still thinking that military is too big to fail, and they're not looking at the data. Our data is showing that there's no way military can regain the control of the country anymore. Because one, like I said, the battalions are down to 75, from 800 to 75, right? So it can't reconstitute because they're having a hard time recruiting the young. All the youngs are on the resistance side. And so they're forced doing it. And then many times they're going into the jail and getting the criminals. And the battalion commander that I was interviewing, a couple of them, they have the hardest time trying to control these criminals, that has been provided to them as a reinforcement. Again, criminal gang is not a really a good, effective fighting force. They may be violent, but they don't, they don't have the discipline.
So both of you mentioned neighboring countries and like a history of seeing one perspective of the conflict, which is an increasing problem moving forward. So that helps us segue into the next question on what you see as the significant elements that you think foreign observers, but I will also actually add, and some Burmese, misinterpret their understanding of the Spring Revolution. And why might some of these people be missing these points? And why is it important for them to hear your insights today?
Well, like I said, a lot of people have the historical view of the Myanmar military, and Myanmar as a military is the too big to fail, and that is not the case. It has been eaten away and rotten from inside. That is no longer the military that was in the 1960s, and for the international community, it is really important to continue to provide the pressure. Not so much the material support. I mean, it'd be great, if they can provide it, but the pressure, right? I was saying earlier in my dip, right? It was what we found was international pressure. So if we can come together and provide the international pressure, we can really end it, soon. For the neighboring country, they are they get the negative impact of Myanmar being in this type of conflict, right? Because of the conflict, all the you have all the basic, the flow of refugees into their countries, right? And then many of them has a lot of investment inside Myanmar, and that is at risk when you are in a conflict zone, right? And then the third is all the criminal gangs are taking advantage of this conflict. And, like the cyber scams and the human trafficking and drug trafficking is coming out of Myanmar as a result of that. So really, Myanmar conflict is not just the internal security problem, it is the regional security problem. And it's acutely felt by the neighboring state. The neighboring state. And neighboring states, some of the neighboring states are playing both sides, but by playing both sides, it's really will prolong the conflict, which is not good for them, actually. For example, China, right? China has even gotten like some misfire, some artillery round on their side. Well, it could have also on their projects, artillery round, or because military is flying and bombing anything, anywhere, it could be one of their assets, right? So as long as this conflict continues and prolongs, their assets are their investment are at risk. So what they wanted, if they want to really, worry about their interests, I'm not talking about Myanmar people interests, but they should, think about making sure that Myanmar people desire, which is over 90% want democracy and federal democracy. So what they can do is, in the past, it was risky to, support the resistance side, but resistance has shown in 3 years that they can do this. It is winnable. And Myanmar military is not too big to fail. It is failing. So there you go. So it would be their best interest, actually, for the neighbor to support the pro-democracy movement at this moment.
Thank you, Mimi. BP?
Yeah, I think I will point out two. One is the military perspective. I think the a lot of international, not only international observer, but also kind of like many of the local observer kind of think that I think Mimi said, the military is too big to fail. And it's come as a surprise within 3 years that, how military was kind of like overrun by PDF and EU in some, some of the areas. And before the coup, if we look at a lot of, policy paper, we'll see that the estimate number of the military was like they thought like was like 500,000 to 600,000, and CIA kind of like estimate around like 300,000 to 400,000. But recently, I think there is a report produced by the USIP. It was really good. That the report come after a lot of interview to the defections, kind of like military, personnel, and the desertion, the military personnel, and they estimate that the military on foot soldier number is estimated around 70,000, which is very, very low compared to the previous estimation. So I think that would be the biggest surprise. One of the big surprise. And second is the perception of lots of international observer thinking that election as a way out from this conflict is, I think, really irrelevant, because after the coup, one of the coup leader, Myanmar, promised was we will hold elections, right? And the intention was, I think, in my views, like to kind of like reverse 2010 scenario, opening up scenarios, kind of like not kind of like making NLD not to run in the elections, but kind of like giving space to ethnic political party and give some of the minor kind of like roles, and him becoming the president, and one kind of like he is like make the architect of the elections more become rigid, kind of like invite other and try to kind of like seek the international legitimacy, but within 3 years, like they could not do any elections. Even last year they tried to kind of like do the polling, kind of like census enumeration for the elections, but it could not happen. So, and you will see that the acting president of the NUG claiming that 60% of the country territory is controlled by the resistant force. So I think assuming that election as a kind of like way out from this conflict is, I think, really irrelevant at the moment. So I think these two.
Good points to raise, thank you.
Yeah, I just had one point actually. I just reading you from like especially Bangladesh and India perspectives mostly. So one thing that I see that even the Bangladesh and India, they both are really concerned. They only concern is the regional politics, and the second concern. No, that's actually not the second concern. That historically the Bangladesh and India are saying like Myanmar. In Myanmar, Myanmar military is the most institutionalized and strongest group in the country, and also what the political system in Myanmar, whatever, their military will remains the power, and that they have to communicate with military, and they are making historically. So until today they are using this method actually. So that's another thing is what I want to say is as Mie said, like they didn't realize yet the Myanmar problem is not only it's like a regional problem. It's not only the internal problem because I think that another point that regionally if India the most India consensus at the moment what I see is India's think if India stand by with the resistance side, the Myanmar military will be really solely rely on China. So they are like regional a rival. So India is the most concerned for China's the most powerful involvement and dominant in Myanmar politics, even for Myanmar military. So that's why they are stay cautious and away from the resistance group.
Well, that tells you that India doesn't really understand Myanmar, right? Myanmar people have a natural antidote against China. Yeah. So if left it up to their own devices, you don't have to worry about that, right? Yeah. But back to what they were talking about, all these troop size, right? The military's too big, and it's supposedly 500,000, now down to 70,000, so like 10%. When we started to interview all these defectors, when I remember I was telling you corruption. The corruption was something like this. When Myanmar military because they treat their frontline soldiers so badly, there's a lot of desertion. And the commanders don't report the desertion. They continue to keep those soldiers on their books, and they collect their salary and pocket them. Mm-hmm. So any given moment, they don't know. So if they have kill in action, even right now, when they get killed, 10 people get killed on the battlefield, they report 2 got killed. And they will continue to collect money for the other 8. So as you can see up in Naypyidaw, they have no idea how many troops they have. And so that's why when you don't know exactly how many troops you have, you don't have your strategy is not going to work, right? And then also, like I was talking about fear, right? They mistaken fear as a discipline, fear for discipline. And so when I was talking to some of these colonels and, high level, colonel and above, and they're so fearful. They're afraid to make any decision. They're afraid of everything. And I'm scratching to my head before the coup. I'm like, how could you be that and be able to win wars? You cannot have that level of fear to make any decision, because in the battlefield, you got to make a lot of decision. And now I have my answer. You can't. So because they have mistaken fear as a discipline. Discipline is about doing the right thing when nobody is looking at, right? It's not about following order or being fearful. Yeah. So that's, I would say, why that is military is collapsing from inside.
So keeping with the regional trend that we were just talking about, I'm curious about your perspective on ASEAN, and more specifically their 5-point consensus that has been trailing along in the dirt, if you will, and what you think ASEAN could do, if anything, to help support the Spring Revolution. Who would like to? BP or Hlaing, do you want to start us off?
First of all, let me read what this 5-point consensus for.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Because for those who are not closely watching the Myanmar conflict, so people might not know this about what this 5-point consensus. So this is kind of the decision made in Jakarta on April 24, 2021, and all of the ASEAN leaders kind of
to include Myanmar.
Yeah, to include the coup leader, Myanmar. So basically, he agreed that to resolve the Myanmar conflicts, they come up with 5-point consensus. The first is an immediate end of violence in the country. Second is dialogue among all parties. And third is the appointment of the special envoys and humanitarian assistance by ASEAN. And the third is special envoy visits to Myanmar to meet with all parties. So I think one significant, issue that failing in these kind of 5-point consensus is the meeting all, party. So if we look at a lot of ASEAN kind of engagement, I think mostly through with the SAC military regime, I think this is kind of an issue. And at the moment, we have seen a lot of the conflict has kind of worsened in Myanmar. And according to the UN and World Bank, there are 2.6 million people are displaced. 25 people of the population are suffering from food security, and a third needed humanitarian assistance. And inflation has raised to 25%. So I think if we look at what happened within 3 years, this data, ASEAN, has a big issue to fill, and I really doubt, the capacity of the ASEAN and their political willingness, because the region is also very divided, issue on, how to, approach Myanmar.
Oh yeah.
I'm not forcing anyone to jump in, but if you have more to add, by all means.
Oh yeah, just one point. What I see the ASEAN Football Consensus is just pathetic. It's really weak. Their pressure, they're working, especially even the gentleman online side and also participate in the meeting. We agree to follow the rule, the Football Consensus. But until today, so there is no the positive result from the ASEAN Football Consensus. Yeah, this is very obvious. Yeah.
Where Myanmar has become for ASEAN is the ASEAN reputation. It has affected negatively the ASEAN reputation throughout the globe, right? And because they they trusted the Myanmar to follow the 5-point consensus, but he never followed them, right? And now but in ASEAN defense, because he didn't follow the 5-point consensus, they barred them from attending a lot of the ASEAN summit, which is good because Myanmar wants that legitimacy, right? He doesn't have legitimacy. He knows people inside don't think he has legitimacy, and the world knows that he doesn't have legitimacy. So he wants to use the ASEAN to bolster his legitimacy. So it was good that the ASEAN didn't allow him to, attend. But ASEAN have to be, now the Lao is the ASEAN chair and starting to kind of toy with allowing Myanmar to come back in. But the thing is, every time you believe in Myanmar, it will be at the ASEAN's peril. Reputation will be degraded because he will never follow anything that he agrees to, right? So the ASEAN is with everybody he signed and he agreed to 5-point consensus, nothing happened. And then even like recently, China brought the three brotherhood and the military together, ceasefire, the ink is not dry yet, and the military started to shell, attack them, right? It was supposed to be ceasefire. So, and then before that, anything before that, you look back, whatever military agreed to, they never live up to it. So if you think that you can talk him into, agreement and thinks that he is going to, live up to it, the history doesn't show that he would do that, right? So that's why I keep on telling the international community, if you are going to ask the people to negotiate with Myanmar, unless you have an enforcement mechanism, it's useless. It's useless. So if ASEAN going to do agreement, is ASEAN going to send forces to make sure Myanmar and military adhere to the agreement, right? If you can't do that, the agreement doesn't mean anything. So don't stop wasting time, right? But us at ASEAN right now can continue to do what they can do. Like ASEAN has a lot of weaknesses and they have their ASEAN way and non-interference. But as long as they continue to deny legitimacy to Myanmar, it can go a long way right now. Just don't try to get lulled into or influence into allowing Myanmar to come to ASEAN meeting and think that he is going to change or live up to agreement. It's going to be at ASEAN's peril.
Just before we go to the Q&A, I'm going to ask one more question in a similar vein as the last two, but this time about the U.S. I'm interested to hear your perspective on the U.S. Congress's Burma Act under the National Defense Authorization Act, for those of you who are familiar. That, started in the beginning of 2023, so almost exactly a year ago. There's a lot of buzz and kind of a lot of hope within the Myanmar community on high expectations that the U.S. would be able to now legally provide non-legal support, which was
Lethal.
What did I just say? Legal? I meant lethal, non-lethal support in this act. So I'm curious to see what your take is on that in terms of if these expectations have been fulfilled, and if not, what else needs to be done to help realize these hopes? Does BP or Josang
Okay.
or
Maybe the
Mimi?
best person to start with.
I suspect you have a few things to say.
Yeah. Well, it was such an effort from the Myanmar diaspora that is and specifically, I want to give a lot of credit to the Chin diaspora that lives in the United States to get that Burma Act through. Chin diaspora is small compared to other Myanmar diasporas, but they are amazing, right? So I give credit to that. And the Burma Act, it shows that the Congress has a lot of interest in it. But the Burma Act required a lot more funding. But even without the funding, the fact that Burma Act recognized the ethnic armed organization for the first time in history gave a lot of leverage to the ethnic armed organization when the time comes to negotiate for their federal democracy. Right. So I think that the biggest thing to me is the recognizing the ethnic armed organization is the biggest benefit out of the Burma
I would
Act.
agree with you on that one.
Burma Act, yeah.
Monumental.
Right. But, I think that they continue to, I think Myanmar diaspora is continuing to advocate for, the funding of the Burma Act right now. It has some pieces of it coming out, but not, not to the fullest. But the Burma Act really authorized any type of non-lethal support for ethnic armed organization, people defense forces, and also former military combatants. So those are, it authorized a lot. And I would think that's the major win in that way. But yeah, it does need a little bit more funding so that we can really implement that element. So because non-lethal assistance can be like communication equipment, right? Because military is right now cutting all their communication for the resistance, because communication needed for cooperation together, as well as communication is needed for early warnings for the, before the bombing runs, and also communication needed for humanitarian aid delivery. So, it can go a long way. So non-lethal is really actually what they need to come to the final. And like I said, it was not about firepower. The success of the revolution is not about firepower. It's about people power. And when you talk about people power, people cooperate more, you get more power, right? So that's why communication equipment and communication is really, really important. And that's why 2024, I said strategic communication is very important.
Do either of you have anything to add before we go to questions?
Yeah, let me tell a little frustration about Burma Act.
Great.
So I think the reason why a lot of high expectation on the Burma Act is, I think, also go back to the previous political background in Myanmar. The first is, after the coup, I was in the protest, and you will see that a lot of protesters are kind of like holding the signboard of we need R2P, right to protection, or we need kind of like the intervention or something. So when the Burma Act was passed, I think there are lots of high expectations, especially the clause of the supporting EAO and PDF, and also kind of like the clause of the non-lethal assistance. And the reason that the people also kind of like really high hope on the Burma Act is the in the past when Rohingya issue was happened, military was the one who kind of like doing propaganda that there could be external intervention. They kind of like they try to garner the public support, local support, and they try to build national kind of like sentiment in the country. So when the Burma Act was passed, I think there are like a lot of belief that this could be really a chance that happened. But I talked with the some of the stakeholder, and they have when it comes to Burma Act, you will see that in Afghanistan, there are reports about under non-lethal assistance there is support of the communication device or armor. So I think there is some kind of like expectations, but it haven't kind of like really meet the expectation yet. But I think the good thing about the Burma Act is the it gives kind of like more broad open definition. So it kind of like give activists and resistance movement kind of like to work harder. So it's not that it will not happen. There is a thought that it's like they can try. So I think this is kind of like a window of opportunity. But at the moment, I think there is still frustration over Burma Act. I think.
Okay, well, let's see what happens in 2024 in that regard. I want to transition to questions, as I suspect there are many people waiting to ask questions, but I would like to privilege the people who are physically here with us first to see if there's any questions amongst you who are in the room with us. If you have any questions to start us out for the panelists before we turn to what I suspect are many questions waiting for us online. Anyone? Go ahead, I'm not gonna call on people, just be brave and go ahead.
I'd just like to return to the point that Mie Mie made on the failing truce that China allegedly broke with the Three Brotherhood Alliance just recently. So it's in China's interest, obviously, to try and get some sort of truce in place. So there are only a limited number of people in this truce, even though it's been broken. So what I wanted to ask is, what do the other ethnic leaders think about this strategy? I mean, some of them have said they will never enter a truce with countries. So how was this kind of strategy received among those groups that did not enter and do not wish to enter into a kind of truce with countries? Anybody want to?
Yes.
Well, the truce was very limited, right? And the very limited to the Kokon group area, right? But they already got what they need already. So the ceasefire was actually in benefit of the Kokon group. The other ethnic groups were a little bit concerned that if there's a truce in those areas, the military will be able to repurpose, the troops in that area to their area, right? But what they realize is, I think that they're concerned initially, but they are not concerned. And that tells me that cooperation is happening between the Three Brotherhood. They don't say it outright directly, but because they're not concerned at the end. They're not concerned at the end because they knew that Kokon and the Three Brotherhood has to kind of appease China. And again, everybody thinks that these guys are control of China. No, they have to deal with China, right? Because otherwise they get a lot of pressure. But don't, they're a part of Myanmar and they understand China is all about China. China is about its interest, right? So they understand that. So, and people are saying in 1027, right, China gave the green light for them to do it. No, China didn't give a green light, but China did not give them red light. China did not give them red light, right? So it's not like they have complete control. China does not have complete control of them, but China can make their life difficult. So they have to somehow appease China and manage China per se. So I think that's a better way to describe them rather than like they're under the control of China.
Let me frame it this way, in my views. I think China could kind of like arrange the peace talk between Northern Alliance, the Brotherhood Alliance and the military, but actually the actual ceasefire is something beyond the capacity of the China. Yeah, I think they sit at the table, they talk, but still ongoing. So right. I think, yeah.
Like I say, enforcement, right? If China is not willing to come in and enforce the agreement, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like I said, the military started attacking the Three Brotherhood area, and the ink is not even dry, right? This afternoon, the same afternoon, right? They signed in the morning, and the military started attacking in the afternoon. So, any type of agreement. So I really want international community to be very clear about, what does agreement mean to, and how trustworthy the military is. But they may tell you they agree to anything, but really they're not really going to follow.
One more question from the physical audience before we go to the virtual.
I found it interesting when we had the Above and Below the Ground documentary that the resistance groups in that documentary were using at least 3 different languages as a viewer that I could tell. And I was very interested that it was English as well as Mandarin. So can you maybe talk about communication levels? What languages are being used for like the public or international facing community that's watching? What languages are being used to convey messages from the resistance?
But yeah, most of the time it's in Burmese and English. But like I said, they need to really have the communication strategy where they translate it into Chinese, the Mandarin, Cantonese, whatever the neighboring country, and Thai as well, so that they can continue to keep everybody informed the real situation inside Myanmar. And not only that, for internal communication, again, many of them don't speak Myanmar or Burmese, right? So then they need to be able to put all the information in different ethnic groups. So, those things require planning and, thought through. And if you don't have a really good a communication plan, you are not able to engage with some of the audiences. They get left out. And then they don't understand, and then that's misunderstanding occur.
Jocelyn, did you have something that you wanted to add? Oh, okay, sorry, I misinterpreted. Okay.
So back to communication assistant, not only the equipment, right, that we talked about, very needed, but also capability. If we can have, those capability provided,
Yes, please, one more from the floor before we go to our virtual audience.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to learn about and to listen to your discussion. I'm Tara from Myanmar. I'm currently studying here, and as you mentioned, the defection and the military is collapsing right now, and I can see that there's more than 50,000 hunter soldiers are defecting. And also in the ground, starting from the Operation 1037, the military troops, the hunter troops are retreating. And it seems like they only have fireball right now. And they use that fireball to the civilian, directly and intentionally to the civilian, in order to attack or threaten the resistant groups, to make a pressure to the resistant groups that the civilians are hurting because of them. This is the military hunter propaganda. And I just read the news that today the Hunter Security Council just extended their coup for 6 months. So this new year, how do you see how many percentage or how longer the military hunter can hold their power in this kind of situation? This is a sincere question that I want to know as a Myanmar. Yeah.
Well, I always said the victory is not in the hand of Myanmar or the military. The victory is in the hand of the people. So faster and tighter you're able to cooperate with each other, you can get to the goal faster, right? So it's within the people's control. So find a way to cooperate even better. I mean, you have cooperated, like I said, the people has cooperated, amazing level of cooperation. But if we want to get to the end, like you said, K3C, great, but we need all, beyond K3C, all of them, right? And Sagaing and Magway area, they need to cooperate more, right? They have done a great job so far, but you just need to do more to get to the end state. And it is not in the hand of Myanmar. It's not in the hand of Myanmar. It's in the hand of the people, right? Because when you cooperate, you get that unity of effort. When you cooperate, you get this, the speed and the mass, the needed to get to the finishing line, right? So it's really in the people's. So in 2024, find an additional way to squeeze it out and cooperate, right? Because all have a same goal, and they're bickering, or some of them are bickering over how to go about doing that. But instead, find a way to overcome that and then focus on the goal, not focus on the differences, right? That will give you, yeah. So it's in the hand of the people.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I'm gonna bring in our virtual audience, and I'm going to take the liberty of kind of combining several of the questions into one. So there's several people have an interest in the relationship between Inouye and ethnic groups in terms of cooperating together, particularly with the Brotherhood Alliance, but also what will this mean for the type of governance in each of the ethnic areas? And more to the point about the future vision of, or the vision for federalism in Myanmar. I see those questions kind of to be in, these are huge questions, obviously, but they're in conversation with each other. So I'm sure we could speak a lot to that, but does someone want to jump into those questions?
I think represent the ethnic minority group. I'm going to let them.
I mean, I will say perhaps a thorny, interesting one, and also apropos the statement, I think VP that you mentioned, or no, it was Hlaing yesterday that was released on Inouye and several EAOs in solidarity with very specific points of how they want to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like there is in kind of like general kind of like understanding between the K3C member and the Inouye especially on I think the key point is that they want kind of like power sharing between the state and the union, and that they want kind of like more power within the the state compared to the previous situations. And if we look at the administrations over the past 3 years, a lot of the resistant control area, this has been actually kind of like run by the resistant groups. And I interviewed to some of them, and especially in the Hlaing area, this operation has been kind of like run by the Chin diaspora community, especially those who live in the U.S. So they kind of like make a huge contributions. And recently we see the formation of the Chinland councils. So the Chinland council is kind of like a council, that formed to have like the public administration in Chin State. And the Chinland council kind of like run by not only the CNF, the Chin National Army, but also kind of like a lot of the CDF, Chinland National Forces. So they are also part of the statement released by the Inouye yesterday. So I think there is some sort of kind of like understanding or kind of like mutual agreement on how they would like to run to the Federal Democratic Union. But also there's kind of like more difficult question on when we talk about federal democracies, like there is of course a lot of discussion need to happen on power sharing level. So this is of course a lot of discussion need to happen. But I think the key point is they want federal democracy. I think this is the key point.
Justin Langer, Mimi, do you want to add to the conversation on this?
Oh, yeah, they want the federal democracy with the state having a lot more autonomy, right? Just like in the United States, right? Because really what Texas laws and what Texas does is different from Hawaii, and Hawaii is different from California. We have some similarity and some commonality, but then we have our own resources. So what has happened historically is that Myanmar military will bully themselves into this ethnic area and take their resources by force, and they don't want that anymore. So they want it. That's why they talk about more autonomy, and but they don't talk about sovereignty. They're not talking about their own sovereign country per se, because many of them know that they're landlocked state. Right, Kachin is landlocked, Shan will be landlocked, Cranny will be landlocked, Chin will be landlocked, right? We all know that countries to develop, they need access to the sea, right? And they always point out about Wa. Well, Wa right now has a cake and eat it too, right? Because Wa is autonomous, but they have access to, they can get down to the sea in Yangon without any visas, right? They don't have to ask for anybody permission to get away, move around inside Myanmar, because they are part of Myanmar still, right? So similarly, I think that's what they want, is more like, I see it as a more of a United States-like union, but it's going to be their own flavor. How much can they come together to be common? and how much they need to be, autonomous, right? Because certain things are better by the bulk, right? Certain things, like even right now, like education, right? Education, some of the ethnic states, they don't have enough teachers. So if they're just sovereign country, where are they gonna get their teachers, right? So something like the infrastructure, maybe it's better if you were coming together and do that. Like foreign policy might be much better coming together as a group, right? A monetary policy. Can you imagine having a little state like Granny State and have to run your own monetary policy and monetary fiscal policy there, right? So so some things are much better as a group, and that's something they would have to negotiate among themselves, how much they want, where they want to be in common, and when they want to be separate. And it may be 2075, 2080, we don't know, but it's something, I think that they just have to work through, and that will take time. That will take time, right? Because a lot of the devil is in the detail, and they have to work through it. And that will be the building of the constitution process. But they just right now meet as a general agreement to, so they will enable them to come together a lot, cooperate much tighter cooperation.
Just one point. Yeah. So just remember a friend of mine told me for the Christian state. So I told him, so the people are talking about education, we're like independent. I mean, we're independent. So you guys are landlords, like the areas or what. He told me, so our Christian people our Christian people don't like fish. I said, okay. I thought, you can come in for a high stay. I want to say something like that. She said, our Christian people don't like fish. Okay. Just guess all, yeah, I want to say.
Yeah, it's not about fish, right? It's about having access for trade and being a part of the world economy.
It's hard for myself not to participate in that question. I have so much to say. No, I'm just the moderator.
But also right now, people talk about Myanmar, right? Right now, many of the states are under post-conflict already. They control it. They're having to administer it because military no longer have control of those states. So they are having to self-govern right now, as we speak, right now, right? So really,
Okay, so I am going to jump in ever so slightly to say that there's been ethnic governance systems in place before it was even called a country of
right, they do, right?
And before the British arrived for colonialism and so on and so forth. That a lot of the advocacy in terms of those areas is that there needs to be continued and sustained support to make those ethnic governance systems more robust, which is more important than ever during the current civil war.
Right, because they're having to well, one thing, this is not a civil war, right? This is an internal conflict. Civil war is like two community fighting each other. This is not about two community fighting each other. It's all community fighting against this military. So it's not a civil war. It's an internal conflict, domestic conflict, yes. But not a civil war. But nevertheless, back to the original point of this being, they having to self-administer, and they have a traditional, like you said, level of governance, and making that a lot more robust would be very helpful right now. It's not post-conflict, not tomorrow, the day, it's right now.
I'm gonna jump to other questions that are coming from our virtual audience. One is certainly provocative, that goes back to our conversation about ASEAN. In terms of basically, okay, you have US, you have ASEAN, you have China, all of which are engaging or not engaging in various ways. And the question is there a conceivable way for these very different parties to collaborate in order to bring some sort of resolution to the conflict?
The ASEAN?
It's a bit open-ended, the question.
I think the best ASEAN can do is deny, like I said, the junta of legitimacy by not allowing them to attend or, not allowing them to, not giving them the platform, right? But I think that's all they can do. Because any type of agreement, they think, like I said, it's not going to be resolving the conflict because they're just going to use military junta just going to use that as their tactics to replenish themselves before they attack again. So I think that the best ASEAN can do is just continue to deny, entry unless they start to start to implement the 5-point consensus.
Anything to add or?
And engage more actively with the old state template, resistant groups.
Let's see, I'm gonna take one or two more questions. I will actually revert. Does anyone physically here have a question or should I keep going with the virtual audience? Okay, we'll stick with the virtual audience. There's a question, well, there's quite a bit of question on communication strategy, but to be honest, I feel like we've kind of belabored that point, and so I'm gonna leave those questions out, and instead, there's a question related to our earlier discussion on Inouye and ethnic armed group cooperation. This one is getting more at what are the more on concrete question regarding the three most urgent issues which should be negotiated and drafted into an agreement before the conflict ends, and who should assist with that, given what we are talking about, a lack of international support. I appreciate kind of the, this is asking for concrete steps, before, I guess, the military falls, of what could be done in terms of agreements in place.
Yeah, like we said, like political agreement, beyond K3C, if a more inclusive agreement, but, agreement doesn't have to be all detailed. Like I said, the detail has to be worked out, and it may be months and, years to negotiate, because that's what the United States did too. We didn't do it over the weekend, it took a long time to do that. So, but in general, the United States, they decided that British gotta go, the king gotta go, right? And they did everything they could to get rid of it, then they started. So similarly, being, in the United States, I see the similar type of framework. And if they can get a political agreement, and they already had like some type of NUCC, making sure that NUCC is more robust with all inclusive. Maybe we can reuse that, dust out that platform and use it again, or if it doesn't work, then whatever it works. I am not the one to get caught up in like the position of the platform, but if the platform is going to be more inclusive, bring them, do so, right? Do so. And then also there's like a debate like confederacy, federalism, and I'm like, doesn't matter. Forget the label. What most important is come up with something that everybody can agree, live with. Everybody can live with, and then there will be some compromise. A little bit of this, maybe they were saying, maybe the state, the ethnic minority want 75 control and 25, maybe, together, but, Burma may want the reverse, but okay, maybe can we come together 50-50, something like that. But that required a lot of discussion and, debates and to do that. Is that they need to start now. It's not post-conflict, like I said, in many of the places is post-conflict already. Post-conflict already is right now. So they need to start that conversation.
Closing remarks from either of you?
Thank you, Kevin. So I think, so for ASEAN and international communities, like including China's and India's Bangladesh, they should definitely prioritize the humanitarian aid to the peoples in Myanmar. So right now, almost for the country, the peoples are really suffering, and they're so in Rakhine State, almost in Rakhine State township, our internet type shutdown. Even though myself, I have a contract for almost 2 months with my family. So all the Minnesota do's and things for Rakhine people right now in Rakhine State and other area like Lian also they also have the internet shutdown in that area. So basically, I want to like encourage the international community, even ASEAN, including China and India, so to focus to distribute humanitarian aid through the people in Asia as much as possible. Yeah.
I would like to kind of like restate what Dimi said about the resistance force. I think need to come up with kind of like general kind of like consensus on how the frameworks, like very broad frameworks on especially I think the power sharings. It doesn't need to be really detailed, because if it go very detailed, then there could be more kind of like tension. So I think now I know that NUG has more it's like closer it's like relationship with the K3C, the Chen, Karen, Karani, and Chen. But I think there should be kind of like more kind of like broader kind of like consensus. I think especially about the power sharing, she said confederation of federations of federalisms, it doesn't really matter. I think the thing is if there is more consensus of power sharing, and especially more given kind of like power to the state, then that could be a really good factor. Because I know you are expert in natural resources. I think you can talk a lot. A lot of natural resources are lying in the East ethnic area, and this ethnic minority doesn't really benefit from their natural resources. They are the one who suffer from the natural resources, and the state, especially the central government, kind of like allow them, the foreign company, and kind of like and because of the extraction, forced labor, and land acquisition, these minorities suffer. So I think there should be kind of like more power sharing, kind of like kind of like consensus, I think, between the NUG and the system.
Okay, thank you. I believe there might be an announcement.
Just wanted to thank, on behalf of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, the panelists for bringing such a very intriguing topic and discussion for us. And I want to also plug the next event a week from today. We start our loose transition webinars on next Wednesday. And the 4 webinars this semester are going to focus on decolonizing Southeast Asia studies. And the first one will be relearning Southeast Asia, and focused on the field school that we supported last summer. So we hope you will join us again, and thank you so much for the discussion today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.